1980s, when an effort began to construct a Seattle memorial. Though there were some grand ideas for what might be appropriate, a public park was suggested, or renaming a street, the memorial became mired in the 80s just say no political furor over drugs. One television commentator argued that to honor Jimi in any way was to glamorize a drug addict. Those hysterics derailed the initial effort, and the compromise memorial that resulted was a heated rock with Jimi's name attached, set in the African Savannah section of the Seattle Zoo. That spurred me to write a magazine piece in which I called the heated rock racist, xenophobic, and evidence that musical heritage and African American culture were disregarded in predominantly white Seattle. The zoo rock, which remains today, the heating element broken last I checked, made Jimi Hendrix's grave even more important as a tour stop, since few thought a zoo was an appropriate place to mourn or honor Jimi. I first met Jimi's father, Al Hendrix, in the late 1980s and interviewed him on several occasions about his son's legacy and history. One of my first questions to Al was about Jimi's grave. Why did rock's best-known left-handed guitarist have an etching of a right-handed guitar on his tombstone? Al said it was a mistake made by the monument makers. Al was not a detail-oriented guy, particularly when it came to his late son's history. Al was kind enough to invite me to his home, which itself was something of a roadside museum to Jimi. No parent wants to bury a child, and it was Al's unkind destiny to outlive his firstborn by 3 decades. The walls of his house were covered with gold record awards and photo enlargements of Jimi. There, among family photos of Jimi as a baby or in an army uniform, were several images that belong in any 60s photo collage. Jimi burning his guitar on stage at the Monterey Pop Festival. Jimi with a white-fringed jacket on stage at Woodstock. Jimi in his butterfly velvet suit on stage at the Isle of Wight. There were a few pictures of Jimi's brother, Leon, on the wall, and, bizarrely, a giant painting of Al's deceased German shepherd. On a basement wall was an image familiar to me, the same blacklight poster of a godlike Jimi that I owned as an adolescent. I never asked Al Hendrix why Jimi's mother's grave had been lost for almost 50 years, and Al died in 2002. In the several years Room Full of Mirrors took to complete, at least 5 of my interview subjects have passed away, including experienced bass player Noel Redding. I interviewed Noel on almost a dozen different occasions, but it was nonetheless sobering to realize after his sudden death, in May 2003, that my conversation with him 2 weeks prior was his last telling of his own story before his passing. There were moments in writing this book when I sensed that the history of Jimi's era was slowly slipping away, and that fragility made the extensive research all the more delicate and imperative. Still, there were conversations I had and places I visited where Jimi Hendrix seemed positively vibrant and almost breathing. On Seattle's Jackson Street, the historical center of Northwest African-American nightlife, amid storefronts that 5 decades ago were clubs that hosted local talent like Ray Charles, Quincy Jones, and Jimi, one can find pieces of a life still freshly remembered. Just down the street from 23rd Avenue, sitting on blocks in an empty lot, is the house Jimi grew up in. It has been saved with an eye to future preservation. Stop by the flower shop on the corner, and the ladies behind the counter will remember Jimi from Leshigh Elementary School. Across the street at a Starbucks, there's a gray-haired gentleman sipping coffee every morning who once danced the jitterbug with Jimi's mother, Lucille. And in the retirement home on the corner, 88-year-old Dorothy Harding sits in a wheelchair and tells stories of being Jimi's babysitter and of the stormy night he was born. In Seattle's black community, most people knew and know Jimi Hendrix as Buster, his family nickname. In the text herein, he is frequently called by that name, particularly by family. I've also taken the narrative liberty of using the spelling Jimi, J-I-M-I, throughout Hendrix's life for consistency, and to avoid confusion with Jimi's best childhood friend, Jimi Williams, who shows up in this history often. Hendrix did not use the spelling J-I-M.
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.